What's up guys, Joe here at Performance Auto Solutions. We're finally making progress on the Sub-Zero track car. We were last at Lime Rock and third gear blew up. Julian's doing a 6-speed swap. I have a new ACT clutch and flywheel kit and a MAP DCCD. What this does is it gives us analog buttons to change different modes. So the modes can be adjusted based on the wheel speed, throttle, mile per hour, and a couple other things that I'm not familiar with at the moment. I've never used it before. We've installed them before, but I haven't had really any intimate time with it to figure out how and what works best. Last season I suffered a lot because of the drop knuckles and the wheel bearings and the axles and so on and so forth didn't abut to each other to maintain the wheel bearing. So we're gonna put the drop knuckles back in after we put the R180 STI rear diff in, STI transmission in. I do have to find a drive shaft, a starter. The oil looks great. Look at that, honey. Oh, here. No, this is exciting. Look at that, huh?
So that's your gear.
So that's part of third gear. Thanks, Frank. Okay, so the last track day, we had set up the Willwood 6-piston caliper with the 2-piece rotor. And I had Frank shake down the car because I was experiencing some neck pain. And then we pushed at Lime Rock a little too hard, although we did come in first in class. Third gear of the 5-speed transmission had decimated itself. The 5-speed in this car isn't very strong, at least for not how hard we push it. Truth be told, the car only makes 308 horsepower. It's more purpose-built than it is for like a high horsepower application. Now we can build a high horsepower car, but for what it needs to be, horsepower to weight ratio, 308 is plenty to keep up with the GT3s and stuff like that. We do have the front Wisefab drop knuckle kit in here. Zach at Neverlift Engineering did the alignment. You can hear it has spherical bearings with extended tie rod ends to help with the Ackerman as you make a turn. The Subaru's suspension geometry is not ideal. We do have a IAG 6-speed transmission mount for shift kit that's also going to go into this particular new setup. And what I really like about the 6-speed, it has differentials. Not that the 5-speed didn't have differentials, they were only one way. So when we would lift the wheel, in examples like Watkins Glen bus stop, we'd hit it pretty hard. When we lift the wheel, it would spin and then the momentum would stop. So anywhere I have read or learned that any car with a differential improvement is going to see an improvement in time directly proportionate. So I'm really excited to see how this performs, especially with consideration that it's going to have 6 gears versus a 5. Therefore, we'll be able to build more momentum and carry more speed because it'll be in the right gear ratio. It will require more shifting, but you've seen my previous videos, I can drive a little bit. Cosmetically, what I've done since I've been recovering, I had the front bumper painted, it was black. I had the front lip painted, even though I asked not to have it painted, but I do think it looks great.
It does look very good. I like it.
Picasso.
And then Devin's gonna come polish the headlights and we're gonna wrap them yellow. He's really big into it, and I personally think it really looks really DTM. If you're not familiar with that, look it up. Oh, the Corvette brake ducts.
They're definitely chewed up.
Yeah, they're chewed up. I don't really think it's doing any justice to the rotors, but this was a previous modifications to satisfy the small diameter rotor and the friction coefficient. It was getting so hot because it was such a small caliper with small rotor, and the high friction pads, they were glowing red. So we needed ducting, which helped, but it did limit the angle of which we could steer. So it was rubbing against this, so you couldn't go lock to lock. Frank didn't really care at Lime Rock, so he was going for speed, which I totally understand, and especially being that he came in first in this car with Emerald. These will get removed because now that we have a bigger rotor and pad surface, the cooling of it should be significantly improved, especially it being a 2-piece rotor and them being like Willwood's, vane system. You can see that the vanes here.
Way better heat dissipation.
Yeah, will cool better, exactly. Another thing that we have to do that I did not mention before, and I do apologize, my buddy Vic makes these top hats. So you can get more camber out of the car. Now initially he had made them so that the cars can have bigger goofy wheels, but for us it has a dual benefit. Not only does it look cool to have more camber, it's gonna help us with the suspension geometry again, so now we can get more angle in the front. With this we'll be able to get more because Colin had to pin his coilovers against the spindle, so he drilled through them and pinned it so that he can just max the camber out and pin it. I didn't think that was something that we could retail, so you couldn't get it. Otherwise, we'd have to drill everyone's rotors. With these top hats, we can just max out the camber and get the same angle and dial it in better versus pinning it.
What's the name of the top hat?
Oni Camber.
Oni Camber.
And they're very reasonable. Made in America. They're made in the Bronx. So, you know, it's just tough, son.
Just dead ass, you know?
Dead ass, B. Yo, on God.
On God.
Yo.
Something else? What else did I do? I do have the cage that I do have to put in. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do that. So at the moment, we're exercising like a temporary harness bar with harnesses with a single seat. My cage, which is a bleeding tarmac, 3D printed chair slayer combination. It's up there on the top of the container. All I gotta do is weld it in the car, but that requires time that we don't really have. So we're kind of like, we have 24 days until we're at GRIDLIFE, where I'm gonna have to shake down this car and go as fast as fuck boy. And it, same for Colin. Colin's
Same for
also-
that thing that's in pieces right
Oh
now.
Jesus! Oh, did you sign up? You signed up?
I didn't sign up yet, but I do. I'm planning to sign up so we can go. I need
Oh,
to go
okay.
at least when GRIDLIFE is the
Oh,
one.
let's talk about your car real quick, because Patrick's part of our team. As much as he hasn't been on the track, he's been behind the camera, so he's been on the track, so he's comfortable in the environment.
Hi.
But he's done a couple things.
Silly things. Very silly
Let's go
things.
this way. The lights good. Pat's first outing, the car spun a rod bearing because he had a $100 short block.
We didn't even make it, honestly.
It didn't.
It didn't even make it. It was like the day before the race. Got in alignment, and the car was like, "Nah, we ain't going tomorrow." Basically.
But in all fairness, the block that he bought,
Definitely.
Was a used
It was a
block
gamble.
off of a friend that we were just like, let's just see what happens.
it went through a head gasket failure,
Yeah.
and we gambled, and it didn't pay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yeah,
But now he's
that's
back
right.
in action.
All day.
He's been driving on the street so that we know that it's good. His DCCD has been a little bit wacky, and I think you could showcase what you need to repair as per why it's wacky.
I mean, I assume it's that, but I did get word from our techs here that being the issue, I have really, really, really tight fitment, as you can see, and it tends to rub on your harness that is underneath the fender. So I was told that harness doesn't necessarily apply to the DCD. Usually it plays with your like coolant
Throttle.
temps and throttle, which is also very important.
But those things are a factor of the DCCD.
also
Did
true.
they tell you that?
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know.
I just work here.
He just only here, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. Nothing special. But for the most part, yeah, I put in some work into this thing. Too much work, honestly, to the point where it's like almost an unlimited class vehicle for time attack. I do plan on making like an entire video on this and catching up to these boys on the track, because I've yet to put in any real seat time besides in the 350Z. That's also a story I need to share with you guys, but in due time. But for now, that monster, this monster are going 6 speed. And I can't wait to see how they do the whole different drivetrain and gear ratios on the track this year. So catch us at GRIDLIFE in New Jersey. I'm out.